Right, Ed, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
First question is always the same for everyone, and last question is always the same for everyone. So to kick things off, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Edward. A lot of people can't really pronounce my name because they always just say Edward. So I always introduce myself as Ed.
Okay.
I'm 33 this year.
Yeah.
I'm currently in advertising, mainly social media right now. It's been a long journey, I would say, because I'm like one of the oldest in my current team. So I think on a day-to-day basis, I generally interact with a lot of Gen Zs a lot. So it keeps me fresh. It keeps me a little bit more alert. But yeah, I would say things right now are going great.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I would say this year has been it's been a little bit shaky. I would say also lost a very close family member of mine. So there are a couple of setbacks, but I think along the way I'm just learning and growing, processing things. And I think just internally finding who I am, what I actually want to do, whether it's staying in advertising, whether I want to venture out to do something else. To me, it's always a learning process. And there's never right or wrong, I would say. And I think coming from where I am in my family background, it's, at least to me, it's always a place of comparison with my siblings.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite normal. So I'm the youngest in the family.
Okay.
2 older sisters.
Okay.
Constantly telling me what to do in life. Constantly telling me what is right and wrong.
Yeah.
Especially when we were growing up. But I think over the years, they have also understood who I am as a person. And I generally don't conform to like a specific mold. So I think they've also sort of let me be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they figured out that's how you thrive.
Yeah.
This is you.
Yeah.
You don't change someone to fit a mold. That's how I feel, right? You let that person develop and thrive and do what they do.
Yeah.
And create their own mold.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about the loss of this year. It happens.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest changes in my life when I lost my dad at a very early age. So that set me upon my path as well.
Yeah.
That is life.
Yeah.
We all experience it at different times. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But sometimes I feel it allows us to shift. It allows us to move. It allows us to maybe clear space to then receive something else. And maybe that's the journey you're starting to go now.
Yeah.
You're saying how you've been in advertising for a long time. You're technically Uncle Ed with your team. To some extent, but you're feeling a shift or something that you maybe want to try or do. And perhaps with your 33 years of experience, you feel like this is the time, this is the moment that maybe you can work on something else or a side project that could then become a full project. Things happen for a reason. I always believe that. But it's whether or not you decide to use what has happened for the better lack of the word to your advantage, or maybe perhaps use it as an opportunity to grow, to develop, to see, to try. You've always been in advertising?
I've to some extent. So I came from like event management, and then I went into advertising. There was a little bit of a period where I sort of maybe thought it wasn't for me. So I sort of like went out and I ventured into like trying to become a personal trainer.
Okay.
To some extent. Yeah.
I would never have picked that just from looking at you, but okay.
I mean,
never judge a book by its cover.
I think there are a lot of different things. Like I tried doing that. I tried being like a freelance content creator.
Yes.
I think I wanted to just have my hands in a little bit of different things. A lot of people used to tell me like you are like a jack of all trades, but master of none.
That's right. I get that a lot too, actually. Yes.
So I think that also gave me some a little bit of like an identity crisis to some extent. So I think going back to my siblings, like both of my sisters are honestly very high flyers. One of them's a lawyer, one of them's like a neuroscientist.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's me, right? And then I'm like, what am I doing? So so I think like there were a lot of things that I'm still trying to find along the way. Like, do I want to hone a personal a skill where I'm so well versed in it to the point where that is just my pure focus. That's my passion. Anyone that asks me about it, I can give you a very direct and very in-depth answer. Or do I want to have multiple skill sets where I can then say like, okay, I've experienced multiple things in life. I know what works, what doesn't work for you. You know what I mean? And I think that sort of then brought me back into advertising, because I think in the advertising world, it's a little bit more fast paced. You have to get your hands dirty in a lot of things, even if you're like a manager, you know, some of the times your team needs you to really just do the groundwork as well. I think because of that, I generally enjoy it a little bit more to the extent where I know I can steer my team in a direction because I've done the groundwork. And because I can do things, I've done things that I can help lead them in. But I think in that regard, then it comes because I've had to do multiple things at the same time. I sort of then understand, okay, this needs to be done this way, this maybe not so much, you know. But then it goes back to the point of like, okay, does that really constitute a specific skill set that I've owned? You know what I mean? So I think it's a lot of things that I'm still trying to figure out. I think the only reason why I didn't really venture and stay in like personal training or become like a full-time coach. I mean, unfortunately, in Singapore, there's a lot of circumstances that prevent you from venturing out into something without having like a stable fallback on. You know what I mean? And I think with whatever I've been doing also, I think it's a lot of things fall back on comfort. As much as I like to be vulnerable, there are only certain things that I can be vulnerable in, especially if like I have family to support. And I think it's just as wherever life takes you, wherever opportunities arise, I think like to me, I think if something fits and it falls in place and the opportunity is presented to you, I would take it and I would embrace it. A lot of times I get that sentiment where like, oh, you know, you should have just gone into it. You know, you given it like another 3 to 5 more years, you probably would have been successful in it. I say, yeah, I don't disagree with that. You know what I mean? But I think to me, what I deem as being successful in what you have set your mind on comes from personal content and happiness. And I think like it's not so much of like, yeah, you know, if I had stuck in the fitness industry for another 5 years, maybe I would have made a name for myself. It's all the what ifs, right? And all like
I hate the what ifs, by the way.
Why I've been like a successful PT trainer versus like a small pawn in advertising world right now, you know what I mean? But I think whatever I have created in not just my job, but I think in the different milestones of life of the people I've met with, especially with my team, my current team, you know, and for them to then say, and I think if you weren't here, the team would have crumbled. Or if you weren't here, I wouldn't have actually understood that like social media was something that I wanted to do. And then it at least gives me the comfort that, okay, I've made an impact in someone else's life. Even if it's to a small extent, I've done my part in helping to grow them, allowing them to see what they want to do also. And then I think that in turn makes me understand what I want to do better in life.
I love that. I love that. A lot of things there. I was just trying to pick up, and it's funny. One of my ex-girlfriend's fathers also said something about me, because I do agree with you. I'm a bit of a master of none, jack of all trades in a way, which is not a bad thing as long as you can do it. But he I always remember he said, Paul, he knows a little bit about a lot of things. So, you know, and I took that as a very big compliment, because I do like to connect and engage with people. So I guess knowing a little bit about a lot of things allows you to have conversations. And when you have conversations with people, you are sharing energy and you are getting to know each other and you are developing some sort of connection. Whether it's for just this one moment or whether it extends and expands and furthers out.
Yeah.
But for that time, you're sharing a moment, which is cool.
Yeah.
Your sisters are very high flyers.
Oh, yes.
So I can understand having a little bit of pressure when you were growing up in that sense. You mentioned a lot from them as your sisters, telling you, Ed, come on. How about your parents? Were mom and dad in the picture in that sense as well?
Yeah,
yes.
Certainly. I think my dad was like the key driver to whatever we wanted to do. I think a lot of times I think just to lay some context, my dad was a very traditional Asian father. And when I say traditional, it's to the point where you have to memorize the mathematical timetable at the dinner table. If you get it wrong, you have to go back to your room.
Yes.
That was how bad it was. If my older sister obviously sort of paved the way for us. There was a point where she pivoted to and I started calling him dad instead of like papa.
Okay.
And he found it disrespectful. That's how traditional and straight-laced he was.
Wow.
I think over time, as our family dynamics sort of evolved, we're all still very close, up to this day. And all of us have my sisters have are married, moved out and everything, but we still meet up very often. And I think I'm a little bit surprised because how we grew up as a family unit was also, there was a lot of turmoil, I would say. There's a lot of conflict just because of how our parents raised us and how we wanted to be raised. You know what I mean? There was that line, the disconnect there.
Yes.
So props to my older sister for paving the way for us. Because then my dad sort of understood, okay, there are certain things that I cannot control them in, and I need to let them sort of be who they are.
Great.
So I think that's how we sort of evolved. I think for me also, I think till this day, I still suffer to some extent an inferiority complex, but just because I always compare myself to my sister.
Sure. More you than them.
Yes. Correct. Even before, so like my second sister is like more into arts and language, right? Because now she's a lawyer. My oldest is into sciences. I'm the one that was stuck in between because like I liked sciences, but I was more I was more on the creative side.
Yeah.
So I sort of initially I was like, I have a 5-year plan to want to be a vet.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously plans went to shit, and I was like, you know what, sciences doesn't work for me. So then that's why I sort of moved into the creative side and like started exploring things there. I think also it's how I was brought up because as much as I don't want to say it, a lot of times, or rather like me and my sisters like were sort of placed in elitist schools. As much as I hate to use that term, right? I like to identify with that term.
Yes.
And I think as I grew up, I no longer associate myself with like my alma mater schools just because like a lot of people, so I was like from ACS, a lot of people say like, oh, you're from AC. Like from Barker or from Independent. I was like, oh, I'm from Independent. Then you're like, oh, elitist. I'm like, no, I really don't identify. I'm really one of the few that don't identify with that status. Also because like a lot of my peers in my batch who I grew up with, like some of them own restaurants now. Some of them are like in LA running real estate, So that to me, I always think like, okay, actually, is that considered success? Here I am still in Singapore doing advertising, but some of them are like they have a restaurant in like in Europe, in US, they're doing things there, they're making a name for themselves. I see like them posting things about themselves. My friend like on a billboard in LA, him being one of like the top real estate agents for the month, that kind of thing. And I'm like that's great. I'm happy for them, But at the same time, like it's not me being sour. It's me being then not at the same age. Is that considered success versus where I am right now? What's the benchmark of success, right? And that I think is the question I always ask myself at the end of the day, because in advertising, it's generally tiring, with the nature of the work. And then I think, is that considered success, or what does success actually mean? Is it building a rapport with the clients that you have to them to trust you with the brand, right? Or is it seeing the success of your campaign being fleshed out in media? PR coverage, they say like, oh, this brand has done a successful social media campaign because so-and-so has, was the agency that ran it. So I think to me, there are a lot of different layers of success. But I think bringing back to everything, I think for me, it's just being contented with what I have accomplished, and I think leaving a mark with the people that I work with, for them to say, for them and for the clients to say, I think without Ed in the picture, things would have been different.
Yes.
And I think, okay, that's where I leave my impact, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, that's success.
That's a great way to kind of round it off in that sense. If you weren't part of something, would that something have been successful?
Yeah.
That's great. Your impact and your imprint is what success is. Which I love. We were neighbors, by the way. I was UWC.
Oh, okay.
So yes, we were. Okay. We shared Dover Road together. In actual fact, my last question for everyone, I opened up our conversation with the first question is introduce yourself. My last question for everyone is always, how do you define success? But you've actually throughout our conversation have been defining success already. So I'm not going to ask that. So my last question for you, I'll flip the script a little bit, is looking back on your whole journey with everything you've done thus far and what you might be feeling now that you want to move forward and get into. What were your biggest learning curves? Or failures or challenges? And if you were to sit with someone and they asked you, could you tell me something? I'm on this journey now. You know, what one of your Gen Z guys, you know, your Uncle Ed, what's your one snippet of advice you could give me if I'm trying to figure out my journey now? Based on what you've gone through.
I think I would keep it very simple, and I would just say, I think don't second guess yourself. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned growing up. I've had multiple failures and multiple setbacks to the point where, number one, knowing academia wasn't for me, I struggled a lot in school. You know, and many times I was thinking like, I even asked my parents like, should I just pull out of school, you know, and like just reassess, you know, maybe serve army first, you know, think of what I want to do. And that's where a lot of times my parents and actually more so my sisters will give me shit for it and say like, why are you giving up? Just finish what you've started. Don't second guess whatever you've done. Even if what you're doing now is not for you, finish it through, then reassess whether it's what you want to continue doing or explore something else. I think a lot of times people give up halfway because they learn that through the journey that they're going or through anything that they're going through, they go through setbacks, which then causes them to think, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Or am I actually good at this? You know what I mean? But I think with setbacks, then if you continue to persevere, you achieve a certain amount of success because of the setback you face. Because then you start learning, you start growing, you start applying what you initially thought was wrong, but you sort of tweak things along the way to make it fit for you. And then you achieve that success. So I think to me, it's really not second guessing yourself. If you feel like this is something that you really have a passion in and you really want to do, even if you get ridiculed by people or people start to say like, are you sure this is what you want to do? Like, I think you can be doing so much more. I think that's, to me, just a lot of noise everywhere. Unless, of course, like it's really your closest friends and you're sitting down and then they're not really judging you, but they're saying like, it's just a general talk and like, you know, then, okay, that's a different story, because then you can sort of have that heart to heart with your close ones to say like, to help them also pave and like shape the way you're going. But that doesn't also mean that you're second guessing yourself. I think that just means that you are sort of along the way changing certain things about yourself to sort of get to the end goal of where you want to be.
Paving a new path. Maybe just a little diversion over here to go past this obstacle. Talking to people sometimes gives you that perspective. They might have some, I can introduce you to someone. I think they can help you bypass this and figure this out. Things like that.
Because I think like in my team, like I think in just this week, like one of my Gen Z colleagues, he wanted to have a chat with me, and he was like, I really don't know if I want to do this. I've been feeling so demoralized lately. I don't know if this company is the right fit for me. I don't know if this job is the right fit for me, whether like I want to do socials all this time, but now that I'm actually doing it, I don't know whether it's something I'm gonna do. And I said, wait, this is your first job, right? And he was like, yeah. I said, why are you even having these thoughts? Your setbacks have been in the last 6 months. You have like another 5 years to really understand whether this is what you want to do. So don't second guess yourself, and don't like, you know, use your setbacks as
a reason
or checkpoints to say like, hey, actually, is this something that I should be doing? I say just continue going through. If you feel demoralized, there's always a way to work around it. We can always see on a day-to-day what you can do, but always look at your end goal. The reason why you wanted to do socials or why you even have passion for socials in the first place. Then go back to the reason why. Is it like you want to make an impact for yourself in the brands that you're working on? Or is it just you generally enjoy understanding how social media works, how marketing works, how people think in the social space or social innovations for that matter, I just carry on and just keep doing it. You want to have this chat with me? We can in the next year or two.
Right.
Then you come back and you tell me, is this really, if you really still feel the same, then I can say, okay, maybe then, sure. Explore something else if you really want to. But other than that, I think like, I told him like, just chug it through,
Give it a bit of time.
Yeah, give it a bit of time.
Figure out how you fit into this space and what you really want to do. Because again, there's a lot of different roles you can play in the space. Maybe he hasn't quite found where he fit. But that's nice. He comes to you, he asks, you have a chat, and that's the way it should be. I love it. Thank you, Ed. Look, you've shared a lot. I love it. I love your vibe. I want to talk to you more, but maybe not in this little session because we do have to cut it. But thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
Cheers, brother.